So happy to be here. And it's wonderful to be in Indonesia. You have perfect weather. Does anybody know that? You would have many more tourists if you let them know that. Perfect weather. In fact, where we really came from, we've been living many years, they've already had snow and it's not even Christmas. Can you believe that? This man over here tells me that he's got his first grandchild in Michigan, where we came from, and they're having snow there. So that's how they welcomed a brand new baby this week, is in the snow. Yeah, where we used to live 2 years ago. We live in Tennessee, where people are very sweet, and they call you things like baby and honey, and we're getting used to that too. So anyway, we are so happy to be here. Well, we've been thinking about this talk for a long time. We couldn't wait to come to see you, and it seemed like it was so far, and then when it came, it was like, wow, here we are. And we wondered what you would all be like, and what we found out from last weekend is that everybody here is very friendly, very warm. Is that an Indonesian style, is to be very, very hospitable? Anyhow, we enjoyed all of it. So this is a little story. And it's a made-up story, but I hope it gives you an illustration. Oh, I see somebody's going to help us. So this man went to his church, and he was sitting on the front row. And I'm sure you believe in good and evil, right? Good and evil. God and maybe the devil. So somebody who looked just like the devil came walking down that aisleway and sat right next to this man on the front row. And the devil said, "Do you know who I am?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "Oh, you're not scared of me?" He said, "No, why should I?" He said, "I've been married to your sister for all these years." In other words, his wife acted like the devil. And you know, we can get sour and bitter enough in our lives that we do look pretty awful, right? The way that we act is responsible for what we're thinking and how we're acting. And so there may be people here who are miserable, and there may be people who are happy. And you know that 1 hour is probably not going to change it all, but we're going to do our best to give you some ideas, because anything you do, anything, it's like putting a brick on a house. Eventually, the house is built. And so, anytime that you do something for your marriage, it's one benefit of doing something better so that you're going towards a good goal. So, I've worked with a lot of couples in my life. Over 20-some years, I've worked with individuals and couples, married and unmarried, and I want you to know that there are some very unhappy couples out there. But if you really do your work, it's really encouraging. You can have a better marriage. And if you aren't married at all, I want you to know what are the building blocks to having a better marriage, and that's why we're here. How do I advance? So marriage is generally believed to have many health effects. You know, they often talk about, am I going to get my computer back? I'm missing it. Oh, it's not working? Oh, okay. So, okay. You know how you miss your own computer? You get kind of attached. But there are not many people talking about the benefits of marriage. The USA, we are having some big problems with our marriages. And we have 40% or more divorce rate. And what they found out is that people are studying marriage, and they found out that people are, and by the way, I am happy to have you take pictures when I'm thinking I'm popping. I'm happy to have you take pictures if you'd like. There is research. I could have put up page after page of research about what is good about marriage. And guess what? They say that people say they have a higher quality of life. They live better, they have better relationships when they are married than when they're single. They have lower mortality rate. They live longer. Isn't that something? So if you are thinking about a miserable marriage, you could probably live a lot shorter. But if you're reasonably happy, you live longer. They have more money. Sometimes it's because of two incomes. Maybe it's because sometimes singles aren't as responsible about some of the ways that they handle their finances. I don't know. But many of them say that they have kind of a plan of what they're going to do and where they're going to go, and so they're more responsible financially. They have better sex. Better physical and mental health. We talked about mental health last week. Guess what? People have less depression, less anxiety when they're married than when they are single. And lifelong companionship. Loneliness is a huge problem in the United States. I don't know about here in Indonesia, but there is a lot of loneliness. So it's really sad. Now, you probably will not recognize this couple. Do you know who they are? Do we look that different? Yeah. You know, when we got married, this is us at our wedding reception. And I thought I knew everything because I was a therapist. But nobody told me what it was like to live with another person who has not come from the same family in the same area, maybe even the same country. And I just couldn't, I thought I knew everything. How many of you thought you knew everything? There's a joke in the USA, and I hope you can get that in Indonesia. They say, he married Mrs. Right. You know, you always look at all these women and go, who's Mrs. Right? He married Mrs. Right, but he didn't know her first name was Always, because every time he talked to her, she was always right. Yeah. There are so many more things now. Again, I am from another culture. We do a lot more with how to learn how to put cows together and sheep together so that you can get more sheep and cows. But rarely is there a class on marriage. How many of you can tell me that you went to a class before you got married to learn how to stay married? Any of you? So maybe one of you, and well, Daniel, you're not from you're from the USA, so it wasn't here in Indonesia, right? So you're in probably the same area as we are. Nobody talks to you about it, and yet it's the most significant relationship in your life. Why would we be so neglectful not to talk about marriage? And there's so much to learn, and there's only so many things that you have to learn to make it so much better. Isn't that interesting? Most of us got married for the wrong reasons. Can you believe that? Many of us got married because we thought it would make us happy. I'm sure none of you felt the same way. It's probably an American thing, right? Or maybe we wanted that lifelong somebody taking care of us or being with us. Or we wanted someone to share our finances with. Yeah. Or we wanted someone to build us a house or whatever. But guess what? It doesn't matter who you are. When you get married, there is a period of time when everything is okay. And then it's the time for the adjustment. And when it's an adjustment, that's when you have to work things out. And a lot of people in the USA are actually divorcing before their second year of marriage. Isn't that sad? Because they liked the wedding, they liked the party, they liked the new house and all the gifts, but they didn't want to work on the marriage. So I hope that Indonesians are completely different than that. You know, when I first got married, I thought, there's all these adjustments, and we're doing pretty good. And I never learned how to cook and bake. Now, is that something you always learn here? Well, I got into my new recipe book that I got for my wedding, and I was having so much fun. And I saw all these breads to make. I didn't know what to do with yeast. Do you guys have yeast? Yeah. So I thought I'd make these quick breads. I made some rolls, and I made some gingerbread. You probably have gingerbread. And I made some coconut bread. And then when my new husband, Royce, came home, I told him, all day I've been working and baking for you. And he went, really? What did you make? And so he looked at it all and he said, oh, that looks good and that looks good. And he sat down and he cut wedges and he put margarine on it and he was all excited and he was eating it. And within about 15 minutes, he ate everything that I made. And I said to him, why did you eat everything I made? He said, oh, I thought you would be thinking that was a compliment. And I said, to what? He said, well, I thought I'd show you that I really liked what you baked. And I said, I worked almost 8 hours making all this stuff, and it's gone in 15 minutes, and I'm exhausted, and I'm never going to make it ever again. And he went, I'm so sorry. Isn't it amazing that he thought he was making me happy, and I was so unhappy when that happened? And we had a few more things like that, didn't we? Where you thought you were making me happy, and I was not happy at all. Like when he bought me a dress that looked like my mother's. Oh, okay. Yeah, or, he gave me a waffle iron for Valentine's Day, and so that I could make him Valentine waffles. Anyway, so there was just a lot of things, and if we are...
We may need counseling when we get done.
Oh, we may need a counselor. Now, Daniel, I understand you do a little counseling. Is that okay if we come to you afterwards? Yeah. Because we might have a problem here because we're digging it all up. But anyway. But there are disagreements, are there not? And we do have to get used to each other. And it's time to get used to each other.
There's a man by the name of Gary Thomas who tells in a book that he wrote on marriage how that when he was in school, in high school, he was voted the nicest guy in his school. He said that he was kind, he was helpful, he used proper etiquette, he opened doors for the girls and was courteous to the teachers. But as soon as he got married, the real ugly Gary Thomas came out. He could be obsessive and perfectionistic. He complained of his wife's lack of attention to specific household duties as he saw it. One irritation was her disinterest in filling up the ice cube tray after using up all the ice. Once during a loving moment, his wife said, "I will love you forever and a day." And he tartly answered, "All I need is for you to love me just 7 seconds by filling the ice tray." He had timed how long it took. He lectured her on how annoyed he was finding the ice cube tray empty. This was in the days before refrigerators that made their own ice. He said, "There is something about marriage that exposes our ugly side."
And when you think about it, we're usually nice to somebody at the gas station or at the store. We say hello. But if it's our spouse, we may be our ugliest self. Is that correct? Impatient, careless, not tactful and careful. I've noticed that the Asian culture here is so tactful. I'm laughing because sometimes when they ask me something, in the U.S. they go, "Let's do this," and over here they say, "Would you like to do this?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And then I realize that it's something that we're supposed to do, and then I go, "Oh, why didn't you just tell me to do it?" So anyway, so the researchers are saying that the single most serious reason that people stay married is, does anybody have any idea? Probably not. Commitment. Is that a word that you know? Commitment. I will stay with you for life. If you are committed and you know that you are going to stay with somebody for life, you will work on problems because you don't want to be married to somebody else, to some crabby person, right? You want to work on it. You don't want to have a miserable life. And remember that when you get married, you start with all kinds of behaviors that will go on for a long time in your life. So the best time to get help is at the very beginning. You know, I believe also, I believe in the God of Abraham, and I believe that he's like a glue that keeps things together. And he is willing, since I believe that he brought my husband and I together, I believe that he will also work really hard with us to stay together. And so I like to pray to him to ask for help. And when I pray to God for help, it actually makes me love my husband more. They found all kinds of research that when people pray, it didn't matter who they prayed for. Yeah, when whoever they prayed for, they had more warm feelings and more forgiveness for their spouse. And I want you to know that there are people who have marriages that are really miserable. People who have violated somebody in some way by hurting them physically, or is unkind to the children. And I understand that there are needs to start putting space between partners. And I can't say how, but I meant that's not what I'm talking about. There are people who just say, I just wanted a better husband, or I just wanted to be happier with someone. And when it's that, usually, if you work hard enough, you can go back to how you felt when you were dating before you got married, if you'll both work at it consistently and persistently. Do any of you agree with that? All right.
You'll notice on the screen that it has the words, "We still do." Now, I don't know how a wedding goes here in Indonesia, but if you have a wedding in the United States, the couple stands up in front, and the person who is marrying them asks them if they are wanting to get married to each other. And they say different words, but basically they're asking, are you ready to get married to Lori? And Lori says, I do. And then I say, I do, when they ask me the question. Well, we use the words up here, we still do. We still do say I do to each other, maybe not using those words, but commitment to each other.
Why don't you tell them how long we've been married?
We've been married.
Wait. Did they think 20 years?
How long do you think we've been married?
20?
How many?
30?
30?
40?
40?
45?
46. Almost. We're getting to 50. 46 years.
We've been married since 1977. Most of you weren't even born then.
So we want to just encourage you that marriage does take commitment, and commitment means being willing to constantly say, we still do. Once in a while, things happen that, do I still love her? Yes. Do I still like her? Maybe not at the moment, but I still love her.
Do you know what a minister in our marriage, he said, it's no longer your love that will keep this commitment together. It's going to be your commitment that will keep your love together. And so there are times when we say through our teeth, we're committed, right? Even though we're upset about it, because we are going to work on it. We've already committed to each other. We want it to be better.
And so there are things that we want to share with you that we do to keep our marriage strong, which means that we still do to keep your marriage strong as well. There is a man by the name of, was a man by the name of Albert Einstein. How many of you have heard of Albert Einstein? Okay? Now, he was a mathematician, and he was known as one of the smartest men in the world. He came up with all kinds of ideas that weren't even proven yet, and yet over time they were proven. Things that I still don't understand. Now maybe you understand it, but I don't. I don't know what E equals mc squared means. And he understood what the speed of light would do, and he found out that if you traveled at the speed of light, you'd come back older or younger than you left. I don't get all that, okay? But he was so smart. He got married. You decide whether he was really smart.
So smart men don't
smart, sometimes they don't make good marriages. So I want to tell you about him for a moment. In 1914, his marriage started to fail. He decided he'd take control of the situation, and so he gave to his wife a document where he wrote out some instructions for her. Remember, their marriage is failing. It's not going well, and he figured the solution was to give her some instructions. Here are the instructions. Number 1, make sure that my clothes and laundry are kept in good order. Number 2, I am to receive, and these are the words he used, I am to receive 3 meals regularly in my room. Number 3, keep my bedroom and study neat at all times. Number 4, my desk is for my use only. Number 5, you are to renounce all personal relations with me unless they are necessary for social appointments. Number 6, you will not expect any intimacy from me unless I initiate it. Number 7, you will stop talking to me when I request it. Number 8, you will leave my bedroom or my study immediately when I request it without any protest. You know, he sure seemed to know how to work things out. Or did he? What was the result? Shortly after he gave her that list of things, Mrs. Einstein took their 2 children and left him. A bitter divorce resulted. Mrs. Einstein got every last penny of the Nobel Prize that he had earned, illustrating for us again that smart men don't always know how to keep a marriage going. It takes a person who is mature emotionally to make the best marriage partners, and they don't even have to be so smart like Einstein. But we're going to talk about that a little bit more.
So in the USA, there's a famous author, and it was back in the 90s. His name was John Gray. And some of you who might be older could recognize his one book, which was called Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. Anybody ever heard those? All right. And then he was married to Barbara DeAngelis, and she was famous too. We would get these infomercials on every program advertising her book, and it was about secrets about men every woman should know. And here it was, this dynamo couple married to each other, big book authors, all about marriage relationships. Well, they sold millions of their books, but they couldn't make a marriage. In fact, John Gray is on his 3rd marriage, and Barbara DeAngelis has married 5 times, but she's divorced right now. So it doesn't matter about information. It doesn't matter what you know. It doesn't matter how smart you are. They needed some glue to keep them together. I always think it's a spiritual need to have something that is bigger than you to keep things together. It takes more than head knowledge to stay married, and that's why I think it's really important that we're going to talk about it. I do believe that God in my life is the glue, and sometimes when I'm really frustrated, I tell the Lord about it, my God the Father, and I just feel that He can understand, and actually that just makes me feel a lot better.
If you look at the slide, I'd like us to read the slide out loud. Reading out loud helps to put things in our mind. So together with me, read what it says on the slide. There is something special that decreases bad attitudes, decreases the verbal aggression between couples, and helps couples to be more effective at resolving conflicts. Now, I want you to think about what this is and try to guess what it is. We're coming to it in a moment, but keep thinking, what is it that we're talking about? Here's some research from secular psychologists and secular researchers who discovered that when one partner does this on behalf of the other, it helps a person to feel more relaxed in relationships. It increases one's healthy brain activity. It improves their heart rate, and this is underutilized by religious couples. A secular is people who don't have a religion. They don't believe in a God. They don't anything, okay? Okay, and they're researchers. So they do this. So those researchers who don't have any belief in God still say this. They say that they have discovered that when one partner does this on behalf of the other, it slows deterioration of the brain that could lead to dementia. You know what dementia is? When people can't remember anything. When a couple participates in it, together they found their marriage is strengthened in multiple ways. Now we recognize that there are different religious groups that are here with us, and that's wonderful. Whatever form of prayer works for you, it significantly benefits a couple's relationship. Scientists have studied this and recognized that when we have prayer in our lives, it makes a real difference. Research shows that prayer even helps our emotional strength. It physically reduces pain, and we can feel more compassionate for others. These are amazing things that it does for us. Tell us more about it, Lori.
Well, if you would like to hear some of these studies so that you don't think that it came out of my own study, I want you to even get on Google. Is Google the big one here? Google it and look at prayer and how it helps married couples. There are all kinds of studies now on prayer because it has made such a big difference. The research shows that actually when we pray for our spouse, there is an impact on there that's amazing. Psychologically, they do better. Emotionally, they do better. It decreases their stress. It decreases their blood pressure. I don't know if any of you have blood pressure issues. It makes them more compassionate to their partner. They actually feel sorry for them, or they aren't angry about them and bitter. They feel more compassion for them. They feel they're more connected. They just feel closer to that person. Here's some good things. I love things about the brain. It stimulates the frontal cortex in the brain, which is where your integrity and intelligence is, the good things that you do, the way that you think, all of that's stimulated in a positive way. And here's another one. I mean, these seems a little weird, but I'm just looking up the research. People who have pain, who pray for their spouses, have less pain. They found out that they had pain management that was getting something that they'd never had before. Their pain started to get minimized. So that also shows, which I believe, that when you're really upset at a family member, that your pain increases. And when you start to resolve it and you feel less angry or more forgiving, actually your pain goes down. Isn't that an amazing thing? Here's another one. By the way, one of the most unhealthy emotions or feelings for your brain to be in would be what? Does anybody have an idea? Anybody have an idea? The worst feeling to have. Anger. Now, I know I've got a quiet audience. Come on, I'd like you to all be angry right now. I'd like you to go, "Urgh." Okay? "Urgh." That's a very bad thing for your brain. Now, is it normal to have anger? Yeah, we're human. We have anger. But if you allow that to go on for a long time, it starts to impact your brain. It makes your immune system get worse. It makes your heart have problems. It can create diseases or else make them worse. So having anger is a really bad thing. So if you're angry at a spouse and you think that you would like to think about it all day long because you're so mad and you're going to get that spouse when they get home from work, let me tell you, you're the one that's sicker. Isn't that amazing? Actually, we need to be able to be healthy enough that we can choose what we're going to do instead. Maybe we need to take a deep breath and think about how we can say it in a kind manner, or ask a question or get more information rather than just react. In fact, another thing they say that we can do is one of the healthiest things is joy. I'd like you to all have joy right now. Smile, have joy. Yeah, you think, oh, it's really hard. I can't fake that. Guess what? Just smiling makes the serotonin, which is what helps you with depression. That serotonin starts to go up into your brain, and your brain thinks you're happy. So when you smile, you're happy. Yeah, so we feel better. You might even say to your spouse that you're so mad at, "Hi, I hope you had a wonderful day." And they go, "Oh, thank you very much." And you go, "I wanted to ask you why you lost my keys so that I couldn't go to the store." And they go, "Oh, did I have those?" And you go, "Yes," or whatever. And they go, "I'm sorry." And you go, "Oh, okay. Man, it wasn't even a war or any problem." Like, it's very important to try and get control of your emotions and change it. You probably, just like Americans, go, "I can't change my emotions." I'd like you to think right now, okay? How many of you are really good at being an imaginary person? Something in your brain, okay? So I'll have you close your eyes. So for a few seconds, I'd like you to think about somebody who said something really mean to you. And how did it make you feel? Any of you feel hurt when you think about it? How about disappointed, frustrated, unhappy, irritable? Okay, so open your eyes, take a deep breath. Let's think about something else. I'd like you to close your eyes for a minute and think somebody who gave you a compliment and said something very nice to you. They said something, it was just so thoughtful. Maybe they said you did a good job at something, or they said they really admired something about you. How does that make you feel when you think about it? How many of you feel happy?
Can we open our eyes?
Oh, you can open your eyes. How many of you felt good about yourself? Guess what? Just a few seconds ago, you were unhappy. Did you see how fast you changed over the way you were thinking? And one of the best thoughts to have is when we're thankful and grateful for somebody, something in our lives, that increases our joy. And when we're in joy, that's the happiest attitude that your brain can be in. Isn't that amazing? And so if you are going around being mad at somebody all the time, really, do you really want to be their servant? Do you really not only want to be happy when they're doing things good only? Can't you just choose to be happy whether somebody's doing what you want them to do or not? You notice how much we give our power over to other people to make us unhappy. So anyway, and then another thing that they say that brings joy is when we pray, we think about religious things, or we sing a religious song. Isn't that nice? So those are all good things, and I think it's wonderful that our brains are made in such a way that we have the power to change how we're thinking with God's help. In my estimation, that's how I see it.
As you think about this idea of prayer, realizing that however that fits into your life, recognize that researchers have identified the benefit this way. In the United States, the average divorce rate is 40%. In other words, 40% of couples that marry, what's that?
Can you hear him?
Can you hear me all right? I just don't want to pop like that. So anyway, 40% of marriages end.
You know, I looked up what the statistics were in Indonesia because I wanted to see if you had really poor marriage statistics, but I could not find them. Does anybody know what the statistics are in Indonesia for divorce? You do? Okay, you can find it. Let us know.
Yeah, we'd like to know. That would be helpful. At any rate, they did a study, researchers again, of couples that prayed together every day. Again, fit it into your own religious connection. But they discovered that out of 1,156 couples, 1,155 stayed married and did not divorce. That is a huge statistic. So just think about the impact that that suggests. There was also a study of couples. There was 1,300 couples with all types of ethnicities who reported the highest levels of marriage satisfaction, that they had this in common, that they belonged to the same religion, attended religious services regularly together, and they shared similar beliefs and values. Also, they read the Bible or a holy book together daily, and if they participated together in church activities, they had higher levels of satisfaction as a couple.
Any of you have kids? Can kids be something that, someone who gets between a married couple so they don't always have the time that they need? Or when mommy and daddy get huggy, they go like this, right? Get right between, right? No, don't kiss daddy, mommy. Yeah. Well, we really need to recognize that even when you're parents, that you need to cut out time together as a couple. Because one day, what's going to happen to the children? They're going to leave the nest, and there's mommy and daddy. And if all they had in common was their kids, they have nothing to talk about, nothing they enjoy together. Really, the parents need to have, something going on where they are actually spending time together. But even children can participate in some of the prayer time or getting together to talk about religious things. All of those are good. It's very important that you work on your marriage. If you are going to just ignore your marriage, it will die. Marriages are more neglected than impacted by what you've done. They just are neglected. In the USA, we call it, they divorced for irreconcilable differences, which means that they can't be solved, which is a lie. Because you take a couple where they're both willing, both have signed up to improve their marriage, and they can improve it unless they have, I always say as a counselor, the 3 A's, which is addiction, adultery, I have to think about the last one. No, abuse, like physical abuse. Those are some exceptions. But otherwise, if it's a communication, by the way, anybody got communication problems? The whole world does, doesn't it? Even at work. Yeah. But communication can be worked on if you have a brain, right? Yeah. If you're moving, you can work on communication. If your mouth moves and you have a voice, you can move on it. So remember that your marriage is like a train. It's taking off whether you're going with it or not. You better stay on the train. So, how do you talk to each other? A lot of us, anybody built a house here? It's very important that you have a plan before you build your house. Would you agree? You need to know what you're doing. Couples, many of them got married without any plans. Did you recognize how you would talk to each other? Did you say, I'm not going to call you names. I'm not going to get angry and talk you down. I'm not going to interrupt you. I'm not going to say, you're just like your dad, or you're just like your mother, or you're like your relative that went crazy, or what? Like, do you have a plan of what you're going to do and what you're not going to do? Do you react too fast? Do you appreciate each other? Do you tell each other every day what you like about the other person? Hey, I got to do some videos this week for this center here. Daniel, it's on the website. And one of the things is how you talk to people. So I have quite a few things in there on marriage that it will be on the website at some point. But how do you talk to each other? Do you talk to each other in a kind way? Do you want to hurt each other? Is that really what you want to do? If you're hurt, you really need to hurt somebody? Does that make you feel better when you hurt somebody? How about when you go, now in the U.S., there's people who go, I just want to let them have it. I'm going to be truthful and honest. And then you're truthful and honest, and maybe you've ruined the relationship forever by the things that you've said. You can never take them back, right? I had so many couples tell me, you should see how my spouse acts when they're angry. Their face gets red, their mouth starts moving, they say horrible things, they call names, and they are so horrified by what has happened. You may never be able to erase that memory. Be very cautious by what you say. And you better say something, maybe it would be good to pray, because that will take you some time to think about how you're going to say it. It is amazing, though, also when there's encouragement. Sometimes it's good to have an older couple that are happily married that can give you advice. And so make sure you take advantage of that. By the way, we never have any disagreements, right?
I'm not sure about that.
Oh. You know, I used to hear couples, they would come to my office after a week of, counseling, they'd come back a week later and I'd say, how did it go? It seems that when they do really well for the first few weeks, then all of a sudden they have a really bad setback. I don't know. I said I believe in good and evil. I believe the devil is trying to set them back, because there wouldn't be anything better than to have a broken family, unhappy family, children, all the rest. So I do believe that there's something else. But I'd say to them, what did you fight about? And you know that I can't tell you how many couples sat there and go, what was it we fought about? They can't even remember, because it wasn't that important. It was just that they wanted their own way. Sometimes we're very selfish. My way or the highway, we say in the U.S. And that is really foolish. Unselfishness is very important in a marriage. Good communication is important. Why is it that we need to communicate well? Because there are many things to know, and we need to hear about each other's lives, don't we? Agreed? We need to know what's going on. We need to know our spouse better than anybody else, right? That's a special relationship. What if you're feeling really angry? What can you do to have a good relationship or communication? Anybody an idea? Should you continue on when you're feeling angry? Yeah. Might be good to postpone your talk and say, just a minute, I'll get back to you. Or I'll wait. Let's wait until things calm down. Or can we talk about this at 3 o'clock tomorrow? Or let's sit at the table and let's see if we can have a discussion without getting angry. And do you know what? When people have discussions and they're not angry, they get a lot more done. I've had couples in my office where the wife has gone, she's very angry. And I'll see the husband and he's looking at her and I'll say to him, what did she just say? And he'll go, I don't know, but she sure was mad. Because men read emotions and feelings, they don't always hear words. Women, if you want a man to listen to you, get yourself calmed down. Yeah. Oh, it's me again. Well, I always think I'm just giving you information, but I'm going to tell you about a couple where she had been probably, I'm guessing, kind of talking to him like she was his mother. By the way, we want a partner. We want somebody who is kind of equal with us. And if somebody has to act like the father, then that means that the other one acts like a child. Have you noticed? And I think she had been doing some of that. She'd been telling him what he was thinking and what he was doing and what she didn't guess. Anyway, she came in and she was very distressed because her husband left her. And when it got better, I wanted to tell you, I told her to write it all down and I would share it. So here's what she said. She said, we had been through a terrible experience. My husband left me a few years ago. I didn't know why. All he said is, I don't want to be married anymore. And he went and got his own apartment. His wife said, what do we usually think? He must have a drug problem, or he must have another wife, or he must have a girlfriend, or who knows. She said, I was just really upset about it. But after us talking and working on it in our office, she said, I started to pray for my husband. She said, I didn't want to pray for him. I was so mad at him. I didn't want to ever see him again. But she said, I prayed for him. I prayed that he'd have a good life and that his job was going well and that he would maybe think about things and maybe come back again or whatever. I just was praying. But I was hurting so much, I really didn't want the best for him. But as I prayed for him, I started to feel warmer about him, and I started to forgive him. I didn't think it was okay what he did, but I didn't want to hold it against him. She said, I decided that I was just going to tell the Lord, here I am upset, the kids miss their father, our finances aren't good, I'm having a hard time paying on the house. She said, I just decided that God was going to have to help me with that. And she said, I want to tell you that it took several months, but God answered my prayer. She said, I had all these miracles, things that were so surprising that started to happen. And my husband said, there's something that's changed about you. I don't know what it is, but that's a little weird. She said, anytime I would talk to him about the kids, I wouldn't be angry or blame him for anything. I just slowed that down because I didn't feel so angry at him anymore. And she said, I really wasn't sure that I ever wanted him to come back again because I was really hurt, and I kept praying because he said, I'd really like to come back. And she said, I continued to pray, and she said, I let him come back. And she said, I can tell you that it was prayer that really helped our relationship. She said, I feel my marriage is a miracle. Like, actually, she was telling me stories about how her husband came to her classroom. She's a teacher at a college. And he brought a cake for all the students to sing happy birthday to her. She said, he was never thoughtful like that before. She's like, I feel like I have the best husband, and I'm being a better wife in many ways because it just kind of warmed my heart to try and help him. And she said, my husband, who never was expressive about how he felt, keeps telling me how happy he is in our marriage now. She said, things are really better. So I wanted to give you that encouragement. I have many more, but that would be if I was here for a week, I would share those. I just think that we also need to be very, very careful that we are not acting like a bachelor and a bachelorette. Is that correct lingo for Indonesian? You need to not act single in your marriage. When you get married, you have signed up for a whole different package. You're there to work on making the marriage better and to making your spouse feel better and work better, and you're there to help them. And it's a sacrificial thing to be involved with your spouse and not always just do your own pleasure. So it's very important. Just trying to think of some things. We have a lot of people that have come in and they have told us that they spend a lot of time watching sports on television. They don't want their wife to interrupt them while they're doing their sports. And we've had people who've said, that their wife never takes care of the kids and the father's always dressing them and taking them to school. Like, we have to recognize that we are a team. Team, that's a good word, right? Team. We are in this together. A marriage is we are in it together. And over the years, I've had a lot of single people come in for counseling. And you know what they say? If only I had a husband, or if only I had a wife, or if only I had a house. I live in an apartment, and I'm tired of having in a little apartment. Or I wish that I had a car. I wish I had a better job with better income. And then, because I've been a counselor for some years, they might come in 10 years later, and guess what? They have it all. They have a spouse. They have children. They have a car. They have a better house. They have a better income. And you know what? They're upset over everything. They're like, that house, it costs me so much, and I have to pay for all of that. Watch out what you get for. And that job, I feel like I'm working all the time. And my spouse, I'll tell you, they don't help me at all at the house. And my kids, they're so difficult. They're so active. I'm just worn out by them. The very people who wanted them so badly are so irritated with it 10 years later. Watch out what you ask for, and are you enjoying what you got?
On the slide, we have these words, selfishness. Selfishness is where we're thinking more about ourselves than other people. In the married life, men and women sometimes act like children. The husband wants his way, and the wife wants her way, and neither is willing to yield. And so like two children squabbling over toys, I want my toy, no, it's my toy, no, it's my toy. Sometimes that's the way husbands and wives act.
I had a couple that came in once, and they were so angry because the other one, they had one television, and the other one was never watching the right program that they wanted to watch. And they wanted me to solve that. And I said to them, do you have any other problems? Well, you know, we never agree with how to spend our money. And I'm like, really? We need to be learning these things as children, and we really actually need to help our children learn how to be unselfish.
Your turn.
Oh, it's my turn. Okay. By the way, are there people who are never really happy with what they get? There was a study, and I don't have it in front of me, so I'm just going to give it to you with my own words. They were asking families that made $50,000 a year, I don't know how much that would be in Indonesian money, are you happy and do you think that you're making enough? And what do you think the family said? No. And they said, how much do you think that you need to make? And they said, we need to make double, 50,000 per year. And then we would be happy. So then they asked people who had 100,000, are you happy? Do you think that you're making enough money? And do you know what they said? We're not happy. And they said, well, how much do you think that you should make so that you can be happy? What do you think? Yeah, 200,000. So they went to people who had 200,000. They said, are you happy with 200,000? Do you think you're making enough? And you know what they said? No. They said, how much do you think that you need? 400,000. They went all the way up to million. People who had million think that they should be making 2 million. People who think that they have 2 million should be making 4 million, which shows that it is an attitude. Are we going to be thankful for what we have and who we are, or are we always reaching out there for things that we don't have and think that there's something that's more happy out there that we don't have? We need to recognize that we have this insatiable appetite that we need to be thankful for every day and who we have. Is it me again? Oh. When we marry, you know what? Again, from my background, I feel that God has forgiven me for some of the things that I've done. Why wouldn't we want to forgive other people? Oh, you have a question? Okay. So why wouldn't we be happy to forgive people the way we've been given grace? How many of you, people have been kind to you? They've done good things for you. Your parents have done good things for you. Isn't it a good thing to be kind to others? And why wouldn't we want to practice that with our spouse and in our family? Go ahead. Oh, this is the statistics for Indonesia. Okay, he said he had to do the math because they weren't showing the percentage easily. From 2015. So it's at low levels in Indonesia for divorce. Okay. When COVID happened, divorce rate, nobody was divorcing. After COVID ended, how much? 68%. Wow, folks, that's really sad. There's a lot of broken homes out there, isn't there? Okay. All right. So it's really very sad. Okay. So let's do this. Let's just say that it's important for us to agree together to some things. Let's go for that.
We need, it's amazing And I appreciate those statistics because it helps us to understand why what we're talking about is so important. And it also, it's important for us to realize that there are solutions to these things. Yes?
Thank you.
Okay, are we? Oh, okay, okay. So what we want to agree on is that we will not get divorced.
Unless somebody's in danger.
Yeah, unless there are issues that Lori has talked about. What are those 3 A's?
Addiction, adultery, and abuse.
Okay. So let's practice those words just because they sometimes when we say things, it helps to register in our mind. We will agree we will not get divorced. Can you say that? We will not get divorced. Have a deep sense you will work through every situation to safeguard your life, your children's life, and the legacy you leave for the future generations. Every marriage has highs and lows, and you can and will be able to get through it. Above all things, have fervent love for one another, for love covers a multitude of sins. Love is a wonderful thing that comes because of God's love for us. We can love each other. Also, it's important to recognize some very basic principles of what love is. One writer put it this way: love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy, love does not boast, love is not conceited. When we begin to realize when we say we love someone else, that's what we're saying. We are willing to be patient with them. We are willing to be kind with them. We are willing to not envy them or to boast about what we are instead of them, and we're not conceited in what we do.
So, thank you for coming with us on this journey to talk about marriage. Whether you're married, divorced, widowed, or whether you're thinking about getting married someday, I hope that you got some of these skills, because skills are important. Each time that you practice it, you're actually making an investment in your marriage. So, I want to see if you've been listening, and some of you are going to help me with this. What kind of skills do you think it's important to use so that you will have a better marriage based on the things that we've talked about? Anybody? What were you saying? Read the Bible or the Holy Book. That would be a wonderful one. Anybody else? Have good communication. Very good. And calm communication. Because when you're calmer, you can actually get through it. Anybody else? Okay, what were you saying? Good listening skills. You mean we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we need to use it in that order, right? That's a good one. Anybody else? Being unselfish. You know what? That might be a thing that we have to get help with from God, because we are actually naturally selfish. And many times when couples are arguing, it's not really about the issue. It's because they want their own way, which would be self-centered. We usually can compromise about things unless it's a principle or a virtue. Anybody else? So she said the ability to let go and change hatred into compassion, which is, I believe that you've been given a wonderful mind. You have that ability to put a stop on it and actually use your frontal lobe instead of just reacting. Show me a reacting couple, and I'll show you one that's not going to make it. I don't care how smart or wealthy they are or what good background they came from. If they can't slow down their emotions and the way they act, they will not hear each other and be able to be kind and compassionate. And they also make good parents, better parents, when they can do that. Yes? Always be honest. And what was the next one? Open. Honest and open. Isn't it nice to talk to somebody who you know is going to be truthful about something? Or to be open. They're not going to shut you down. You want to talk to them. longer period of time. My microphone's going up and down. Anybody else? Yes. Smile. Say, I'm so glad I'm committed to you right now, even though you took my car keys. Yeah, yeah. And it'll go better, won't it? Actually, when I'm frustrated, sometimes I'll make a little tease, and my husband is so cheerful. If I'm really serious and upset, I notice that he will often he will copy that kind of attitude. So we really have a lot of power on the way we act. Anybody else? There's more out there, I know. Pray more. Yay, pray more. Absolutely. Go ahead. Anybody out back there? Yes. Commitment. I am committed to you, so therefore I'm going to work on it. Much more important. Yes? Anything else? Yes. Be patient. Absolutely. Be patient. Thank you. Yes.
Something that I like to emphasize is that before marriage, love leads you to commitment, but after marriage, backwards. People don't realize that there's this stage that changes that commitment now leads to love.
Yeah. You know, so can I have a minute? I love science. So if any of you have ever had, I have to put this down because I have to talk with my other hand. It's very important that I talk with my other hand, then I can get it out better. So there are people who have this excitement about somebody. They meet somebody and they can't think about anything else except them, and they want to be with them, be with them, be with them. And I always thought that meant love. It doesn't. In science, what that means is they're not sure that they have that person. It's unpredictable if they're going to completely commit to them. So it's a challenge and excitement that you get in your heart, and you do this little ooh or whatever, because you always want to keep their time together so that they won't leave you. And what they found is that people think that that's about love, and when that stops, they go, well, I'm falling out of love with that person. No, that's when the adjustment comes, and we have to recognize, as we are emotionally mature, this is the time when the work begins, because everybody you meet, you can actually have that attachment to them with those feelings, but the work happens when you choose the right person that you're going to work on it with. So I thought, that's interesting. So many of you might know people who are dating, and they have a new person every year or every 2 years, because they keep on thinking that's what love is, and it's not. No, there's more. You had the last one, didn't you? Oh. Well, maybe I should. How are we doing, Daniel, on our time? 5 minutes? I'll take a 5-minute question and see if I can help you in any way. Okay. Yes. Yes. Space. Yes. I'm going to say what she said, and it was from last week. We were talking about there are people who are very jealous or fearful that a spouse is going to, go somewhere. And that the tighter that you hold, almost like a butterfly, the more you crunch their wings, and that they never fly. And the relationship can't get any healthier. So holding somebody tightly actually makes them want to do it more. There are fathers who say to their young girls, I'm afraid that you're going to go out with so-and-so and you're going to do this and this. And maybe the young girl after a while says, my father told me that so many times. I just feel like doing the opposite. We have this rebellious streak in us. I don't know. I said good and evil. But we may actually push somebody in that direction with our behavior. Then we are actually inviting them to stay in the relationship. Thank you for bringing that up. Any other comments? Yes? Maybe I should do this.
Yeah, I want to ask about adultery in marriage. Can we fix it? How bad it is? Yeah.
That's he was asking about adultery in marriage. Adultery when somebody goes with somebody else and they're in a married commitment, and they actually go outside of the marriage and they get involved with that person. Can it be saved? Yes, it can. I believe that if you work with somebody very seriously and you come up with a contract of what makes you, in other words, you get it. First of all, you have to admit that you made a mistake, right? Acknowledge what you did. Show me somebody who says, well, I really didn't, or we were just talking, or we didn't really do anything. Like, that isn't even going to work. Your spouse needs to know that you got how hard it was, how you hurt them, how that you made it a risk for them in their marriage, with their children, with their finances, or whatever, by going outside of the marriage. And you have a contract that says, I won't be around that person when I'm involved with somebody who, like at work or whatever, and they're of the opposite sex, that I'm going to let you know, and I'm going to never have any secrets. You never want to hear about something later. You always are upfront about what's going on. So yes, we worked with people. We got a contract that both couples would sign so that they know. And then the person who's been hurt also has to quit throwing it in their face after a while. They have to say all the things that they need to say, and then they need to stop being unforgiving. They need to say, I expect more of you next time. And actually, some couples have actually turned that around and been way more powerful and more healthy than they were when they had not committed adultery. So does it happen always? It has to take somebody, a third party, working with that couple, and they have to really work hard on it. So I'm not going to say this is a piece of cake, it's easy, but I'm saying it's really well worth it. Does that make sense? Anybody else? Is divorce a better choice? Well, do you have any things about that? I'm like, that's so broad. I'm like, so did he lock his wife in the trunk? Well, yes, that might be a really good plan.
Well, I think statistically, if I can answer it this way,
Yes.
I've heard you say this before, that divorce often causes more trouble than it solves.
Oh.
Okay? And is it a good solution? That's why Lori mentioned, the 3 A's. There are things that make it very difficult, not impossible, but very difficult. But divorce causes pain in the family, the children, all over, even at work, and all kinds of other situations. So instead of divorce being a quick solution and an easy answer, it is usually the worst. And Lori, haven't you said in one that the couples that work on it and solve it, what happens to them?
So ding, 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 like, oh, I love it when you bring something up, all of a sudden it's like, I really do have those files in my brain. They just pop up. So John Gottman is the father of marriage. Gottman, Gottman. If you read any of his materials, you will really enjoy it. And he looked at hundreds of couples that divorced, and actually he must have found them in marriage counseling. They were either going to get a divorce or they stayed together. So the ones that divorced, he contacted them 10 years later and said, are you glad that you got a divorce? And they said, financially, custody-wise with my children, extra wife, and all the fighting going on, that actually they felt that had they worked on their problems and worked together, they could have probably resolved it and avoided all of this pain and suffering that they had. The couples that, by the way, the most common, when you have young children, you often neglect your relationship. That's often when people want a divorce. But the couples that stayed and worked on it said that after that period of time or stage went through and they went to the next, maybe another year or two or whatever, that they actually felt that their marriage was better than when they had, even when it had improved so vastly, and they were really glad that they stayed together. So yes, that study shows that it's really worth the time and effort to get it together. And there's a lot of help out there. Remember in the days when they never talked about things? There are books. There are workbooks. There are people that will sit down with you. There are couples that you might know that you really admire. There are coaches. There are counselors. There are people that are willing to work with you. Work on it. Don't be proud. Really, your pride is more important than saving your marriage? That's really sad. And I'm just saying it's really worth it. Worth it, worth it, worth it.
And I think that's a good transition point to you, Daniel, because BIC offers those kinds of services and wants to be able to help. So let's turn it over to you, and thank you all for participating. You're a great group. We have
Thank
enjoyed
you,
it.
everybody.
Thank
It's
you.
been really fun to be here. We got to get a picture again. Last week, and I forgot.
That's right. Thank you so much, Lori and Mr. Royce and Mrs. Snyman, right? Haven't been in the U.S. in a while. All right. Something that I think I wanted to bring out, and maybe you can share in 2-3 minutes. One of the things that I advocate is having a plan. So on my notes, I circled that, having a plan. One thing, we have a businessman here. Something that he taught me is that if you look at some of the biggest corporations and some of the successful businesses, they always have a standard operating procedure. In other words, I went to Malaysia, and there was a CEO, and he asked, can you help me out with a business in Indonesia? And I said, well, what about this? He said, Daniel, we leave nothing to guess. We're not going to go there and try. When we go into a country or into a city, we already know what our revenue is going to be. There is no guessing. We plan everything out. We estimate everything out. We know what we're going to do at every step. So what I learned from businessmen is that they have a plan. Firemen, they have a plan. They have a training. What are we going to do? Police, military. So all these successful organizations have a plan. So, Lori, can you share, and Mr. Snyman and Mrs. Snyman, can you just give us maybe an overview? Maybe here no one's had a plan before about, like, when I get married, what am I going to do? Or in a fight, what am I going to do? Or when I raise children, what am I going to do? Can you just give us maybe like an outline or a format of a plan, or ideas of how to make a plan?
Maybe I could do something and put it on your website for people to look up.
Okay.
Yeah, but I believe that, we got different age levels here. We got people who are not married, people who are already have children, people who've got children that have left the nest, people that are older, and maybe those, whatever. Like, I think that there's different plans for everybody. But if you choose to stay in a relationship and be married, choose how you're going to talk to that person. How's your forgiveness? Are you going to be forgiving that person? Are you going to spend time together with your spouse so that you can continue to nurture your relationship? Are you going to work together, worship? Yeah, like have some kind of some time where you're going together, where you're praying or whatever and working on your plans. Like, don't just leave it. It's just like when you leave a house, parts of it start to fall off. You don't work on your car, your oil goes out and your gas starts to go down. Like, don't neglect it. Whatever you work on actually will do much better.
I was talking to a couple, by the way, and I think this is something that she brought out when it comes to unity. The man had a struggle with women, with lust. Instead of the woman getting jealous, what the wife said, okay, let's overcome this together, and they made a plan. Whenever we see a woman that is very revealing, the wife said, I will tell you so you don't look that way. And so they would be walking down the mall, and let's say there's a lady that's trying to flirt with the handsome man, and so the lady would say, there's a lady on the left, don't look, and he would turn his head to the right. And so they were making plans on how to overcome. A husband and a wife. The wife was supporting her husband with the lust, with the struggle with women. And they're a happy couple. In other words, they made a plan. How do we make a plan to overcome this one thing? Instead of being hurt and jealous, it's like, well, if he's already opening up. So there's many ways that you can do. Like she said, you can tailor it to different situations. But the whole point is, another one is unity, right? That I got a plan, unity. This is the stuff that I wrote down. But anyway, you guys already discussed it. Thank you so much, Lori and Mr. Royce. Can we give them a hand of applause? Is that right? Thank you guys so much. what we're going to do now is I'm just going to close, give you guys some announcements of for the food and who we are once again. If you guys want to know more about us, you can follow us on some of our social media platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, where we also can provide resources. We do have the notes from last week, and we also have videos that she made for us, and we're going to be posting them up on our YouTube channel, on our Instagram and Facebook. If you want to know of some of the events that we're going to be having, we're going to be posting them there so you can stay in touch with us. One of the other things that you might be interested in knowing is that on our Instagram, we have a weekly service. Some people have asked about that. English service where we go ahead and discuss principles and even religious topics in a safe place where we can go ahead and share our views and discuss without debating, without fighting, without belittling, but actually in a very respectful way to one another